In the hidden depths of the ocean, where the light fades and life takes on extraordinary forms, there exists a creature that is as beautiful as it is bizarre. Meet the nudibranch, an alien-like sea slug that defies the laws of nature with its dazzling colors, bizarre shapes, and extraordinary survival tactics. Found in oceans from the frigid polar regions all the way to the warm tropical waters, these mesmerizing animals come in over 3,000 species, and many are no bigger than your pinky finger. But don't let their size fool you. Nudibranchs are powerhouses of the underwater world. With no protective shell like most snails, these creatures have developed otherworldly strategies to survive. Some are masters of camouflage, blending seamlessly into their environment. Others flaunt electric hues, warning predators of their deadly defenses. From their naked gills that flutter in the currents to their ability to reuse venom from their prey stingers, nudibranchs are a testament to the wonders of evolution. Each one a living work of art and a fierce survivor in a world of predators. Welcome to the third episode of the All About documentary series starring the Nudibranch. The nudibranch was first discovered in 1894 by a pearl farmer off the coast of Western Australia. The farmer mistook it for a floating sheep lung, which apparently was common at the time, but after some more observation he identified it as a nudibranch, which roughly translates to naked gill. However, Terry Gosler, an invertebrate zoologist at the California Academy of Science, is considered a world authority on nudibranchs. Terry has done some incredible work in the world of nudibranchs, discovering over 1,200 different species himself, published more than 150 scientific papers, and written 5 books. He is known for his work to raise awareness about ocean sustainability and protecting biodiversity hotspots. A lot of what you learn about in this documentary comes from his findings. To break down their scientific classification, it would begin with the domain as Eukaryota, kingdom Animalia, phylum Mollusks, class Gastropoda, order Nudibranchia. Family begins to break down into 2 main types, Dorid and Alid. From there it explodes into many different species of nudibranchs that you'll see today. Dorid nudibranchs look fairly smooth with a tuft of feathers towards the back of the animal that are actually gills used to breathe. Alid nudibranchs breathe with organs called serrata covering their backs. Most are very tiny, some being only a couple millimeters long. Yes, millimeters. Many will grow to be just over an inch long. The largest nudibranchs, referred to as the Spanish dancers, grow to be up to 25 inches in length, but they are one of the only ones known to get this size, while others will stay very tiny. The respiratory system of a nudibranch is very unique. The gills of a nudibranch come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors. They are a great contributor to their beauty, giving each slug an eye-catching appearance. Most Dorid nudibranchs have a feather-like structure on their backs which surrounds their anus. In fact, they breathe through the same area of their bodies where they excrete waste. What a life to live. Despite this unusual arrangement, the gills still provide enough oxygen from the water for the nudibranch to survive. Some Dorid species, known as cryptobranchs, can pull their gills into a pocket on their body for protection. When threatened, the gills retract into the body as a defense mechanism. Alids, on the other hand, lack well-defined gills. Instead, they absorb oxygen through special body parts. One of these parts is called the serrata, which are finger-like projections run along the slug's back in rows. Serrata come in various shapes, sizes, and colors depending on the species. These appendages are long and thin, helping the slug take in more oxygen. In some types of nudibranchs, the gills look like small tree branches, with each branch helping to absorb oxygen from the seawater. Nudibranchs are slow-moving and rely on their colors and toxins for protection rather than speed or agility. They use a muscular foot, like other gastropods, for movement, which secretes mucus to help them glide along the seafloor. Mucus also helps them avoid predators by making them slippery and harder to capture. Many nudibranchs exhibit taxis, which is a response to light, with some species preferring to stay in shaded areas while others are more active in the open. Nudibranchs have two sensory tentacles called rhinophores at the front of their bodies. Sea slug forum states, "We smell scents and odors with our nose, which has a special receptors to sense the chemical molecules in the air. In nudibranchs and other marine animals, same sort of chemicals are dissolved in the seawater. In many sea slugs, this is how they find their food. Scent receptors work better when there's a lot of surface area to test for the chemicals. Since their worm-like shape makes the rhinophores vulnerable to being eaten by fish, most nudibranchs can retract them into a protective pocket under their skin. These pockets are often surrounded by a raised collar or a sheath that can close tightly to shield the rhinophores when the nudibranch feels threatened." The body of a nudibranch is called the mantle, which is often brightly colored. In some species, the mantle is thick and covers the entire slug, while in others, it has small bumps, tubercles, that vary in shape, size, and number. These tubercles are often used to help identify different types of nudibranchs. In many dorid species, the mantle contains acid glands or tiny sharp structures that help protect the nudibranch from predators. Some nudibranchs also have tentacles around their mantle that contain defensive glands, which can produce chemicals that taste bad to fish, helping the nudibranch avoid being eaten. Nudibranchs are equipped with an oral tentacle on each side of its mouth. Inside the mouth of the nudibranch is a buccal bowl, which includes the radula, a ribbon of teeth for scraping or grasping food, like a tongue with many rows of teeth. The radula extends out to grab or bite food and brings it to the mouth. Nudibranchs are found in oceans all around the world, some even venturing into brackish waters. They are found in very warm tropical waters off the coast of the Philippines to the coldest depths near Antarctica. Nudibranchs can be found at many different depths. Most of the populations thrive in warm, shallow coral reefs, but we see some species over 2,300 feet. And just this year, one species called Bathydevis was discovered at a depth of nearly 8,000 feet. To put it in perspective, the sunken Titanic sits at 12,000 feet deep on the ocean floor, so it's incredible what their bodies of a nudibranch can endure at this insane pressure. This is the only known nudibranch that lives at this depth and can even produce its own light via bioluminescence. Most nudibranchs are benthic, meaning they crawl along the seafloor. There are some that can float upside down just beneath the surface to catch food. Some can swim in open waters, commonly seeing the Spanish dancer, and do a wiggle movement in order to get from one place to the other. It's a wild thing to see. Nudibranchs are simultaneous hermaphrodites, meaning they possess both male and female reproductive parts. This greatly increases the chance of these tiny, slow-moving nudibranchs to find a mate in the vast ocean. Nudibranchs perform a courtship behavior and will fertilize each other, allowing both to lay eggs. These eggs will look like a white spiral ribbon of strings or clusters, which they attach to rocks, seaweed, or any other surface around the reef. Depending on the species, a nudibranch can lay a handful of eggs to 1,000,000 at one time. Due to the nudibranch's diet, the eggs can contain toxins from sea sponges as a way to deter predators from actually eating them. In some cases, after the eggs hatch, the larvae will move through the water column, feeding on small organisms such as algae and plankton. This stage can last a few weeks to several months, depending on the species and environment. If the larvae survive this time, they will metamorphose into an adult and continue its journey as a nudibranch. Other species can hatch from the egg directly to an immature adult, Searching for food, they will grow into an adult and search for a mate to continue the circle of life. Nudibranchs usually live for less than a year. Now, what goes after these cute little creatures? There's many predators that see a nudibranch as their next meal. Fish obviously go after nudibranchs. Wrasse are a big scavenger along the reef looking for inverts near coral to feed on. Butterfly fish typically have an elongated snout that makes it a perfect tool for the fish to snag a nudibranch that is in a hole or hiding between a rock, trying to hide. Larger surgeonfish like sohal tangs and powder blues will snack on them, and of course triggers with their razor-sharp teeth will be a terrifying predator to the nudibranch. Nudibranchs themselves can be cannibals towards each other, larger slugs going after juvenile slugs. Nudibranchs thrive in a lot of places where the tide causes the reef to become very shallow. This makes them vulnerable to seabirds like seagulls. You also have crabs and turtles that love to eat a nudibranch. And lastly, humans. Some cultures eat nudibranchs for food as part of a traditional cuisine. While nudibranchs face many predators, they have evolved in many ways, gaining some really good defensive tools. Getting into their diet a bit, they will eat things such as sponges, corals, hydroids, which can have toxins inside of them. They won't digest those toxins, they'll actually store them in their bodies. These toxins make them distasteful or even toxic to predators that try to eat them. The Pokémon like blue glaucous nudibranch will actually go after the Portuguese man of war, ingesting their stinging cells and becoming toxic themselves. For nudibranchs that store these stinging cells, they can shoot out the stolen stinging cells to damage or to deter a predator. Nudibranch's vibrant coloration is also aposematic in the ocean world, meaning it serves as a warning to repel predators. Bright colors are typically understood by other marine life as likely toxic, inedible, or unpleasant to eat, similar to dart frogs having those incredible blue, yellows, and reds colorations in the jungle, actually being poisonous. Other colorations have evolved to allow the nudibranch to camouflage themselves to a specific environment. You can find them blending in with the sand or even against another coral. Mimicry is another. They can mimic their appearance of other more dangerous organisms such as flatworms. A lot of times scientists have a hard time distinguishing between the flatworm or a nudibranch being on a coral. Paying close attention to the gills and the rhinophores can be the deciding factor at times. The other defenses are somewhat more basic, like hiding in tight crevices with their jelly-like body that's able to get where a predator cannot, and also secreting that mucus that would act as an acid, eating the animal from the inside out. There are species of nudibranch that are carnivores, some herbivores, and even omnivores. What do they enjoy eating throughout the day? Some nudibranchs like to feed on sponges. Sponges' defense is to produce toxic and distasteful chemicals on their skin to try and deter predators from eating them, but the nudibranchs have evolved to deal with these, and as mentioned before, some will store these toxins in themselves to protect. Some species go after monopora corals, leathers, zinnias, and even zoanthids. Anemones and hydroids can also be eaten by the nudibranch. For the nudibranchs that can swim really well, jellyfish can also be a prey. By eating one, they gain very strong stinging cells from eating them, as well as their daily nutrition. It's a win-win for the nudibranch. The herbivore-specific species will look for algae around the reef. Hair algae, red and green macroalgae, they'll eat it all. They are your little lawnmowers on the reef, keeping it clean, keeping it healthy for the corals. While absorbing and using toxins to protect themselves is incredible, there are also some that can do another really cool thing with the prey that they eat. The nudibranch can steal the photosynthetic algae from the prey they eat and can store the algae in their bodies, allowing the algae to absorb sunlight and turn it into energy, thus feeding the nudibranch from the inside. With most fish, they will run into diseases like ick, fin rot, parasites on the body, and others that are very specific to their skin. The nudibranch having a very slimy body, they do not run into anything similar to the diseases of the fish. Plus, with an organism that can store toxins and avoid being hurt by nematosis, this also gives them a leg up on not catching anything. In the research that I've done, I could not find any reports of common diseases or infections that a nudibranch would face in their lifetime, their lifespan being so short. only up to a year could also be a factor as to why they do not face these dangers. Where we see nudibranchs face issues and their numbers dwindling comes from water pollution, causes changes in the water levels, as well as temperature changes. Nudibranchs are very sensitive to water parameters, so changes can cause some species to die off. Destruction of coral reefs and coral bleaching is also a big issue for the nudibranchs looking for their next meal. Conservation status can be tricky when you have over 1,000 different species in the family. How many blue glaucus are there? Are the sea bunny numbers dwindling? From what we know, they are not a threatened species as a whole. They are of least concern, but they are extremely dependent on coral reefs. As we see more bleaching and more destructions, we know that their numbers will be affected greatly. From most studies you read, it tends to be the same story no matter where you are in the world, where a certain species is becoming more and more rare to find along the reef. They are an indicator species, meaning they offer clues about the health of their environment. Similar to seeing a sea turtle near the reef resembles a healthy reef. Spotting and studying such tiny creatures can be difficult to keep track of things like their conservation level, but if we keep our reefs healthy, then it's a given that the nudibranchs will be healthy. Now the big question of, can you house a nudibranch in your aquarium at home? The short answer is yes. Not all nudibranchs are suitable for home aquariums because they do not do well in the tank setting, lifespan is very short, or are just very difficult to supplement their diet. However, there are a handful of ones you can find readily available for your tank. Some of these include the Bergia nudibranch, lettuce nudibranch, and the blue velvet nudibranch. These typically cost around $20 to $30 to get one online or at your local fish store. Each of these nudibranchs only get to be about 1 to 3 inches by adulthood, so tank size is really not a factor for them. It is best case to put them in a very seasoned reef tank, as that will closely resemble what they were in the wild. The tank should consist of a sand bed with live rock for the nudibranch to explore and graze on. Nudibranchs prefer low flow when exploring. I've seen them get caught in intakes and power heads when there was too much current on them. Care level is tricky because taking care of them really is a breeze. It's supplementing their diet and making sure the tank's parameters do not shift. That's where the difficulty comes in. They're a very fragile creature. You need to drip acclimate them very slowly because the salinity and the temperature changing too quickly can hurt them and cause them to perish. But once they are in the tank, they really tend to themselves, exploring and looking for their next meal throughout the day. You can see them on the glass or upside down in the caves. They're a real joy to watch. Temper is obviously peaceful. You're not going to have to worry about them eating your fish or bullying them. Reef compatibility is a yes. The lettuce nudibranch eats algae in their diet, so they eat hair algae, any micro or macro algae. They'll clean your glass and your sand bed. If you notice you are low on algae though, you would want to supplement. The blue velvet nudibranch primarily eats flatworms in the tank setting. So if you're having issues with these worms in your reef tank, many will trust the blue velvet nudibranch to go in and eat these pests off your corals. Unfortunately, that is all they're going to eat. So once they clean out the worms in your tank, if you're not able to supplement them with more, they will eventually perish. For the Bergia nudibranch, they specifically eat aptasias. So kind of the same as the blue velvets, if you have a bad aptasia issue, these nudibranchs will be your own personal lawnmowers for getting rid of them. Once they have wiped out the aptasia population for you, without supplementing them with more, they will also eventually perish. Temperature can range from 72 to 82 degrees. Each of these come from tropical warm waters. DKH 8 to 12, pH 8.1 to 8.4, and your salinity 1.023 to 1.025. Keep a close eye on your levels, especially ammonia and nitrates. Those spiking can really hurt the nudibranch. Colors are also really nice. The blue velvet has a black body with neon blue lines running around it, and the head almost looks like a hammerhead shark when they move around the tank. The lettuce has a white and green body, and on the mantle looks like just a pile of lettuce on top. It's super cool to see that moving around the tank. The Bergia are all white with what looks like a porcupine on their mantle. The blue velvets come from all over the Indo-Pacific region. The lettuce is native to the Caribbeans, and the Bergia are found in the Florida Keys. Compatibility has a wide range of reef fish. The main thing to remember is their predators. Some inverts like crabs can go after them. Wrasse can see them as a snack. Any kind of predator fish like triggers and puffers are going to go after them. So be careful and aware of what you already have in your tank and making sure they'll be okay going in. Housing a nudibranch in your home aquarium is definitely possible, but it requires attention to their specific needs. While some species like the Bergia, lettuce, and blue velvet nudibranchs are suitable for tank life, they each have their dietary restrictions and will only thrive if their needs are met, such as proper algae, flatworms, or aptasia to eat. It's essential to maintain stable water parameters and provide a peaceful, low-flow environment for them. With the right care, these fascinating creatures can add beauty and functionality to your reef tank, but their fragility, short lifespan, and specialized diet does make them a challenge for less experienced aquarium owners. The nudibranch is a captivating and complex creature whose vibrant colors and unique biology make it one of the ocean's most fascinating residents. From their diverse habitats across the globe to their extraordinary survival tactics, nudibranchs are a testament to the wonders of evolution. While they are not currently considered threatened, their reliance on healthy coral reefs means their future is closely tied to the preservation of these vital ecosystems. Whether in the wild or in home aquariums, nudibranchs continue to intrigue and inspire, reminding us of the fragile beauty and interconnectedness of our planet's marine life. Through conservation efforts and a greater understanding of these remarkable creatures, we can ensure that their dazzling diversity will thrive for generations to come.